So, what's the difference really between making a change that might be transient, temporary, fleeting, and embodying a new habit, embodying a new sense of self, a new identity? What's the difference? I really find this fascinating because there's so many times when I think about my younger years, all the times I paid down my debt, reaccrued it, paid down my debt, reaccumulated it. And then something would go wrong and I'd keep adding to it. Save up money, crack that savings open, spend back down to $25, spend back down to zero. What's the difference? How have I been able to maintain this new, in the black, debt free, cushion having existence for years on end? Why is this now possible where before it wasn't possible? That's interesting to me. And I just want to share a few ideas with you if you're in the thick of that transformational process right now. And frankly, I think all of us are always in the thick of some kind of transformational process at any given time because that's life. We're always evolving, we're always growing, we're always changing. Those of us who are kind of like, on that kind of self-help type of personal development journey like I am, you're always intentionally doing that as well. But even if you're not intentionally doing it, you are just doing it by being alive. So what's the difference between, let's say you get, some kind of unexpected influx of money and boom, you're able to pay off your debt, but you don't make the mindset changes, you don't make the identity changes required to become that new person who doesn't have debt. You might pretty quickly reaccumulate the debt. If you're someone who gets a kind of great bonus one day of some kind and it allows you to make a change, there's an accompanying shift in identity that goes along with that change, and that's what makes it sustainable. That's what makes it stick. That's the difference between just taking an action and having a new habitual way of moving, of living, of being. I think it's probably true for many aspects of life. Definitely not just financial. It's probably true for losing a lot of weight or any other transformation in your life that makes you feel like a different person. For a little while, it's very surreal to be this new person. There's an adjustment period. And if you don't intentionally absorb that you are going through that kind of pull, that kind of time in the cocoon, in the chrysalis, then you might not emerge as a butterfly. You might emerge as a caterpillar who just has some temporary wings for a while. It's really interesting to think about. It's really interesting. So give yourself time to really take in the changes that you're creating in your life. Write about it, talk about it, think about it, meditate on it, absorb it. I was knee deep, waist deep in debt, and without savings, without any cushion of any kind. There were certain things I was doing, certain ways I was living that made that happen. There were external factors as well, and we can never minimize those systemic external factors. But as I've said, I found that focusing on my part was the only way that I could really begin to make any kind of change. So that's where I live and think and focus. And what I found was that in that experience of living a certain way, making certain assumptions, having certain habits, I was creating debt, and I was creating a kind of circumstance where I was part of that $400 club that the Federal Reserve Board talks about. A lot of people can't come up with $400 for an emergency. And it's not because we're bad people or we're not intelligent. It's just that there are certain habits that we are embodying and living that end up creating that result. There are other habits that we could be taking part in that would create a different result. And many of us have the opportunity to try to adopt, employ, experiment with these other habits. And that's why I wrote Trust Yourself with Money, to just provide a framework for those just kind of stubborn DIY people out there who, like me, want to try and experiment and create a different result with money. I was always reverse engineering some author's book that had nothing to do with money to try to see if I could apply those principles to my financial life, because I wanted so desperately to make a change in my financial life. So I would read a book about, uh, you know, some other topic, and I would go, oh, maybe I could apply this to my relationship with money somehow. It didn't always work, but I'm sharing that with you just to say that I am like a diehard DIY person. I'm like, I am going to figure this out. Did I always love my relationships with coaches and, my experience with therapy and all those other supportive types of dynamics and dyads that I had? Yes. But at the end of the day, I did have this feeling that there was a journey that I had to go on, and I had to go on that journey on my own. And so constantly reading books, constantly learning, constantly finding new teachers, new resources, new ideas to chew on, to think about, to digest, has been a huge part of my process. And I wrote Trust Yourself with Money specifically with those kinds of people in mind, those people who are like that, who are looking for tools. So I want you to check it out if you're that type of person. You'll get a lot out of it. You'll get some clicks in your brain, particularly if you're looking for ways to up-level your, not just the amount of money you have in the bank, but the way you feel inside.